It's been quite a year for Josh Brolin. 4 big films, acclaim in every role, and not instant stardom, but well-deserved stardom. It's nice to see you. How are you dealing with this year? I mean, the actors don't have this that often. This comes along.
It's a good year, and I felt good about what I've been doing, and people have said, how do you feel about, doing this work, and now you're doing this work? I've never seen it like that. I felt like I've been doing good work, and suddenly it's all squeezed together in a year,
But that often doesn't happen. There are many actors who do what you call good work their whole career and remain at a certain level. Is it a confluence of good roles coming your way and your ability to land them?
Well, for me, starting with Robert Rodriguez and having this amazing experience with Grindhouse, and then it kind of, it was a snowball effect, and I ended up getting the Coen brothers film, and then Ridley Scott, and then Paul Haggis, who I've known for a long time. So I don't know why. Serendipity, I guess.
Well, I mean, early on in your career, you auditioned, you were 18 for the Goonies, and you show up, and you don't know what Spielberg looks like.
No.
And you're reading books on acting, right?
Yeah, I was reading Stanislavski.
An Uta Hagen book, right?
An Uta Hagen book. It's true. How do you know that?
Right? And what does he say to you?
No, but even the audition that I was with Spielberg's, I didn't realize Spielberg was on the table. I didn't realize that. But anyway, I came up to Steven at a certain point and I said, hey, look, what if, like, we're going through the tunnels, and what if I think it's my mother's womb, and I start climbing, the womb, like trying to get out of the womb, and if I'm crying and all that? And he said, Brolin, he said, don't do any of that stuff. Just say the words and act. In
baseball, they sometimes say, sometimes it's just see ball, hit ball, right?
That's true,
That's
right?
What it is.
That's true.
But
That's
then,
what basically he told
every
me.
time you go up for a role, there seems to be a story. Like there is the story now about how you got No Country for Old Men. You don't just show up with an audition tape. I mean, you show up with one directed by Quentin Tarantino, and also Robert Rodriguez worked on it. Was it too good at first? You were rejected for the part.
No, but I said, I don't know if you heard this or not, but when I did the tape, I asked Robert, would you please film me doing a couple of scenes? He said, sure. And then finally he said, I said, just use your video camera. He says, why don't we just use the camera we have, which was a $950,000 Genesis high-end digital camera. And then we did it, and he had lit it. He cut it together. Quentin directed me. He was giving me line readings that I didn't necessarily agree with. But when we sent it to the Coens' response was, who lit it, first of all, because it was so beautiful. So we want to know who this DP is. And no, we're not interested. It's not who we're looking for.
Yeah.
So it wasn't until I met the Coens, like, I don't know, 2 months later.
Well, how did you get to meet them if they weren't interested in it?
Well, I have a great agent, Michael Cooper. I have an amazing old-time agent.
Very happy now, I'm sure.
He's very happy. He was very excited. And he just said, he kept saying to Ethan, he got his cell phone number somehow, and he said, just meet him. Just meet him. Just
now,
meet him.
is it true that you were too young to be believed as a Vietnam vet, so they decided they wanted you so much that they moved the story back to 1980?
Do you think that's true?
I don't know. It's a nice story if it is
a
true.
nice
Now,
story.
you answered me with a question. Is it true or not?
All right, Ethan Coen, I asked Ethan to write an article for Esquire. Esquire came to me and said, we're going to do an article, breakthrough article on you. Who would you like to write it? And I called Ethan and I said, would you and Joel write it? So that's what they came up with. I changed a few things. They sent it to me. And it basically had to do with my dad, them hiring my dad. And I showed up on the set, crossed wires, who knows what happened. There were red faces on the set. So we figured, we signed the contracts already, so let's fire Tommy Lee, let's offer it to Shia LaBeouf. So the fact that on these Q&As and all that, the fact that people ask, even yourself, if it's true or not, I can't imagine in a million years anybody would think it's true, but we're having a good time.
That happened to Frank Sinatra Jr. on Ocean's 11.
Did it?
No, I just thought I'd make it up. Speaking of your dad, you've worked with him. You worked with him in 1989 in Finish Line with Mariska Hargitay. He also directed you. I think he did a couple of Young Guns, right?
No, he did one Young Riders.
Young Riders, right.
Yeah, we got him the job directing Young Riders, and then also he directed a movie called My Brother's War, which was an Irish movie. I did a couple of scenes in that.
Now, you have several role models. I assume because he's your dad and because he's a famous actor, he is one. Anthony Zerb's another one, and you also Robert Duvall.
Right, Robert Duvall, who's always been. I actually got the role in Lonesome Dove, which is where I would have met my wife then, but I got the role, and because of contractual obligations with Rick Schroeder, I was actually paid and pulled out of the role, and then Rick Schroeder did it. But not a lot of people know that.
That's a bittersweet thing for an actor. You get paid not to work. It's like a tobacco farmer. You get paid not to grow tobacco.
Here's 75 grand or whatever. Take care.
Well, it happened.
But I really wanted to work with Robert Duvall.
But that happened with Denzel Washington, an American Gangster. You know that. They were going to make the movie.
No, and then they pulled out 3 weeks before they did it.
They paid him $20 million,
That's tough.
And
I didn't get paid $20 million for not doing Lonesome Dove.
You won't be saying
I
that.
wish.
You won't be saying that in 2 years.
Well,
I think.
your mouth to God's ears.
When you were a kid, though,
Or
you
to
would.
Miramax's ears.
When you were a kid, you got up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and you fed not one horse, not two, 58 horses. Was it 2 o'clock?
65 horses.
65.
Yeah,
wow.
that
Was
was-
it
that
2
was the
o'clock in the
most.
afternoon by the time you
I
finished?
got up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and I had to take the truck, and I would put two phone books on the seat so I could see over the steering wheel, and I learned how to drive at a very young age. And, you know, it sounds romantic now, but it was the worst kind of work you could do as a kid. You know, you got to get up 2 hours before you go to school.
Yeah, but you bring that ranching experience to the character that you play here. Here's a guy who knows the territory. It's no country for old men,
Right.
because it's a tough, arid terrain, and anything goes out there. And the first time we see you, we get a backstory.
Yeah, well, I don't know if that's. I mean, I grew up in Central Coast, California, man, where it's pretty nice. You know, West Texas it's tough terrain. It's a
little
whole
tougher
different
terrain than the Upper West Side of Manhattan.
Yeah,
where
exactly.
where
Well,
I
that's
grew up.
true. That's true.
Now, by
So
the
I
way,
have more connection to it than you do.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
You were on a wonderful show, which lasted 13 episodes. Senator Sterling.
Yeah.
As a young guy who's helping people out in the fields, and he gets appointed to fill out a senator's term who's died. Suddenly, you're on all the top committees, the Appropriations Committee, I think, all
good,
those committees. Why? How'd you get those big?
But you said you watched.
I
every
did watch.
episode.
I know, but we just assume that you can get all the important committees. You're not a backbencher.
I'm surprised that show didn't go. Lawrence O'Donnell, who's so brilliant.
On
I think he's
MSNBC,
from West Wing, and he came over and he started this show. But that's the most work I've ever done. The only reason that I was happy that the show didn't go because I couldn't do that amount of work. When you're Mr. Sterling and the show is called Mr. Sterling, that's all you're doing is talk.
Finance and appropriations, right? A lot of script to learn, right?
Yeah, a lot.
It really is.
Huge speeches.
I hope they put it out on DVD sometime because it's
Actually,
really.
I do too.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen it since then.
Now, during the shooting of No Country for Old Men, Javier Bardem was worried about his looks, about the haircut and all that, you know.
Yeah.
Do you worry about those things, or you trust the director and you say, look, however
I
he
don't
wants
trust
to.
anybody, but
Is that true?
I mean, with that,
Yeah.
no,
You
you collaborate. I mean, if somebody says you have to look a certain way, I think Javier put a lot more trust in the Coens than I did. You know, with that, you know, with the look, and I think you talk about it, and Javier was depressed for days. I mean, we went out to a bar afterwards, and he was all, I said, "What's the matter with you?" He says, "Oh my God, my hair is so awful." And I said, "Why? I mean, it's all right. You know, it's a character." And he goes, "No, man, I'm not going to be laid for 3 months. This is horrible."
How does a kid from California portray a crooked New York detective?
That was fun.
In,
that was
American
fun.
Gangster.
Yeah.
But how do you do it and get instant credibility? Particularly in one scene where you're stopped on his wedding day and the door opens. Tell me how you play it.
I talked to Nick Pileggi, who wrote Goodfellas, and he's executive producer on American Gangster, and he hooked me up with some people that were very instrumental in me learning what I needed to learn in order to do that. You know.
10 years ago, you said, and I hate questions that begin like this, but it's a great quote. In 20 years, I want to look at my resume and say, wow, that's diversity. Is that the way it's going for you now?
That sounds pretentious, but
well, I'm sure you're entitled.
I don't mean
That
it
sounds
to be
ambitious,
pretentious.
too.
Well, I mean, look, I have a healthy fear of being on my deathbed and looking back and saying, I mean, look, you got to feed your kids, you got to do what you got to do, but at the same time, if you have the opportunity, and I feel like, suddenly I've been given more of an opportunity of choice, and I don't want to disrespect the choice. That's kind of more what I'm saying.
Let's say, and you shouldn't have to answer, let's say you win an Oscar.
Yeah, okay.
If a role like in The Valley of Elah comes along, which is a small supporting role, would you still take it and consider it? Because a lot of American actors won't do that. European actors will do that to work with a particular director, but American actors are concerned with billing and that kind of thing.
Story and director and character.
Not size of role necessarily.
No.
Now, you've been in 2 movies this year with Tommy Lee Jones, neither of which finds you together in the movie.
I know.
Did you still find able to spend time with him?
No, I've spent more time with Tommy after the movie than I did during each film. Tommy's a laconic guy,
Yeah.
He doesn't really say a lot. He
San
doesn't
Saba, Texas,
San
right?
Saba, Texas, which is where Llewellyn Moss is
That's
from.
right, right.
So that was our whole connection.
And doesn't suffer fools lightly.
No,
you got to
no,
know
no,
your
no.
stuff. And that's why the letter or the note he sent you meant more than anything, didn't it?
It was a voicemail, and he said, "Good job, young man," about 14 times, which I appreciated. No, it was a really sweet message, and he's once you get past that whole thing, he's an incredibly gracious and giving guy.
He's a bit of at first he was a bit of a mountain to climb in an interview, but once you get over to the top,
But I
there's
think
a lot
if you
of
play
there.
into that, then he doesn't respect
Right.
it. If you don't, then he's like, "Okay, let's
Stand
have
by
fun."
your guns. This, of course, is Josh Brolin. apparently and obviously the hottest actor in Hollywood. It's due to good work. There's no hype there. It's the quality on the screen. I think he's going to get an Oscar nomination in 2 categories this year, for American Gangster and No Country for Old Men. It's nice to see you. Come back soon, will you?
Thank you so much.